Obviously, I'm just one person, but I am determined to get us to zero because we love our kids. We want them to get an education. We want them to live their lives. We want to form amazing human beings, but we need to know that they're safe. That is our number one priority.
I can't be protected by hopes and prayers.
I won't use hope towards what's next. I'll make my own way.
I know impossible is an opinion.
I won't wait for safer schools. I want to create them.
I don't want to be afraid anymore.
I refuse to be a victim.
I'm just one person.
Determined to bring us back to zero.
I'm just one person.
Determined
To bring us back to zero.
I am just one person.
Determined to bring us back to zero.
Folks, welcome to this winter edition of our Innovation Showcase. I'm Ara Bagdasarian, the board president of ZeroNow and co-founder of OmniAlert, and welcome to this important showcase where partners share their latest advancements in school safety technology. Just some background, ZeroNow is a stakeholder alliance formed to drive ideas, innovation, and investment to advance campus safety. As a member-based nonprofit, ZeroNow facilitates collaboration between industry, association, and education partners to foster new solutions to keep our schools safe and secure. I want to encourage folks to visit our new community. It's located at community.zeronow.org. It's really social media for school safety, a place to connect with other stakeholders, learn about what's happening, access to our content. But before we get started, I just want to recognize our sponsors and founding partners who made this program possible. Thank you to Access Communications, Additional Corporation, OmniAlert, Axon, Johnson Controls, IACLEA, VTV Family Outreach Foundation, NASPA, the Student Affairs Administrators in Higher Education, and Campus Safety Magazine and Conferences. If you're interested in learning more about becoming a member, please visit ZeroNow.org. And so while we're here, I'm going to introduce our first speaker. Jeff Kelly is with Mutualink. He's the Director of K-12 Solutions at Mutualink. Jeff, are you there? And while Jeff is joining us, I want to make sure that everyone knows if you have questions for Jeff or our speakers today, please ask your questions in the Q&A window. We'll answer those questions after Jeff's presentation demonstration. We'll be able to answer any questions that you may have. And so, Mr. Kelly, welcome, sir.
Thank you. Much appreciated, Ara. I'm guessing that you and the audience can see my screen. Is that a fair statement?
We can. That's a fair and accurate statement.
So Mutualink is the leader in school safety and security. And why do I say that? You know, first and foremost, there are 4 tenets in what we do to try to protect students and staff at schools across the U.S. It begins with threat assessment, and you'll hear Christine, my colleague, speak about that a little bit later. The next issue becomes mass notification. Mutualink is an agnostic platform that connects to any mass notification tool, panic button, hardwired, softwired, fob. It doesn't matter. We're entirely agnostic, and then we become fully automated, and I'll demonstrate that for you. Then you get situational awareness is what Mutualink brings to the table. Many, many, many districts have solved the mass notification problem through Alyssa's Law and other mandates that say you must send out a mass notification in the event of an emergency of any level. Well, then when you think about the most recent horrific shooting at Uvalde, where 376 officers from 4 agencies responded, they could not speak to one another. Mutualink fills that gap. So Mutualink, fully automated off of a panic button press, can integrate any and all radios, no matter the make, the model, the frequency, it does not matter. Secondly, it sends out a notification or an incident invitation to multiple response agencies, merges their radios with school radios, captures the live video feeds from the school, allows a third-party control of those videos during the length of an incident, and only during the length of an incident. Mutualink also has the ability to lock down a school building using access control, and then make public address announcements such as code red, code red, code red. This piece of software that the audience is looking at now would be in a PSAP, might be in a school security director's office, It operates, if you can hit the internet, I'm doing this right now on using Wi-Fi from a location in Rhode Island. I come out of South Carolina. So if I could show you how it works, and Mutualink has partnered, we're Safety Act certified by DHS. We are a partner of DHS, and in that relationship, we're doing some testing now at George Mason University. And what I'm going to illustrate for you is when I press a button, and this is just an illustration, I don't care what panic button you bring to the table, Mutualink can integrate with it and make the following happen off of that as well. Again, to repeat myself, it could be a 3-digit on a phone, hard physical button on the wall, soft panic button, fob, it does not matter. When the button is pressed, everything then becomes automated, and I'm going to demonstrate it for you, and you can see my phone that I put up on the screen. And again, I'm just going to push the SOS button, and then you're going to see a bunch of things start to happen. So here's the invite going out to one or more agencies, and once I accept, things start to happen. And what you're listening to ring, in addition, is my phone. So any group of people using any computer device can be brought into the incident. So again, here comes the video feeds from the closest location to where the panic button was pressed. This gives the officers full situational awareness. And you can see an illustration here. Of course, watch the Wi-Fi give you, there it is. So you can see the video feeds, and this is live, and then you can see a diagram here of George Mason University. So what does that mean? That means I have these cameras fully automated that are in green. If the bad guy, who obviously never stands around, I can then open an additional camera if I know where he's at. And I have control of the cameras only during the incident. Now, Mutualink has been signed off on, if you will, by the ACLU, because the fear that Big Daddy is looking at the kids walking down a school hallway whenever they want to does not happen in the Mutualink ecosystem. And again, all of that you see here, if I prop my phone on here, I can now communicate across the platform on the using the Mutualink technology. I'm using my iPhone as a walkie-talkie, and I can either share or receive video from this device. So any phone system, either Android or Apple, becomes a full-fledged walkie-talkie. Now, what's the power of this? I can PTZ these cameras. So during an incident, Mutualink, by integrating it to your existing infrastructure, gives you the power to share that infrastructure with one or more response agencies in a critical incident. This has proven to save over 50% in time to resolution in an emergency incident. And being quite honest, most emergency incidents today, thankfully, are medical incidents. It's that minor case where you have an active assailant, although we're hearing a lot of it these days on campus. You want to know where that assailant is. I think I'm at just shy of 2:10, Ara. I'm going to stand by, if you would, for any questions. Ara, you're on mute.
Of course. The one time I mute. So Jeff, no, this is great. So is Mutualink a hardware-based solution, or is it software-based? So they have to install something on premises for this?
Mutualink is both. So there is some minor hardware that has to be connected on premise to the video cameras. And again, we integrate with OmniAlert AI. We integrate with many technologies that are looking for a platform. If I extend this out, you saw it early on. We're much more than what you saw there. All these teardrops that you see are actually Mutualink deployments, and I can invite them in off the deployment. I can put other tools on here, such as weather, if I choose to. I can put traffic on here. I can grab traffic cameras. Mutualink is a holistic situational awareness platform. and again, the key word there is agnostic, automated, and full interoperability.
So how you mentioned OmniAlert. So does the system like integrate with a visual gun detection? I mean, can that initiate an incident in the Mutualink system? So if a firearm is detected autonomously, can that initiate the system?
It absolutely can. So from 50 yards out, if someone's walking up to a doorway of a school and they've illustrated that they have a weapon and it's recognized, it can create all of what you see here fully automated. And then the powerful thing here is it can invite the primary law enforcement agency, and we see this all over the country today. You might have a sheriff that protects the county, but the school might be right next door to the local PD. So in many cases today, if the sheriff is the SRO, the local PD doesn't know what's going on. Mutualink, we cover that. So when that alert button is pressed, we invite in the local PD that's across the street or next door. We invite in the sheriff. In some counties in Florida and other places, we actually we extended to invite in 3, 4, 5, 6 response agencies that might have an MOU for mutual aid in response to a school emergency.
So what does a typical deployment look like then? If you're bringing in all these different stakeholders, right? That is there to respond to an incident. How do you pull that together?
Well, it's actually quite simple. Following NIMS protocols, ICS protocols. So when we talk to the customer, and obviously in our industry, we have to do a lot of listening. So when we listen to the customer, we say, okay, who is primary, who is secondary? And then we put a proposal together on who to invite into an incident. And then who has authority to create an incident, who has authority to do certain things, bring in a disparate radio system. So imagine, if you would, that in one of these hallways here, that there was someone with a school Kenwood radio. Well, that Kenwood radio is a VHF. It can't broadcast outside the building. Mutualink has the power to connect that radio directly with the sheriff or police officer's 800 megahertz radio, no matter whether it's a Motorola or it actually might be an L3 Harris. We're entirely agnostic. We can merge those two radios together, so with that school principal or school dean of students is actually speaking directly with the officer, again, through the dispatcher. This isn't done, willy-nilly. It's done with policies and procedures in place.
Got it.
The other important component before I move on is this video feed here can be shared to the laptop of a watch commander's vehicle or out to a smartphone that a SWAT team leader might be carrying.
Exactly what I was heading that direction. Yeah. I mean, how does this get distributed? So we have a question from Chief Dussault. Hey, Dan. Dan asks, so how does it prioritize camera control?
In any ICS situation, someone is ultimately in charge. So when that's determined, and again, we bring everyone together, and then using the features, I'm going to illustrate the features here. So when you look at the incident box here, if I want to speak to the internal agencies that are invited into an incident, I speak on the intercom. It's very similar to what we're speaking on now in this venue here. If I want to speak to a walkie-talkie, I go on the TX, which might be my ground troops. So before I stop moving cameras, and we've done presidential visits, Mutualink has done Super Bowls, papal visits, many large-scale national events. Before someone takes an action, we ask them to broadcast it on the intercom, and then we ask them to text at the same time, where you might type the following: I am taking control of the camera. And then you just wait 5 seconds for someone to say yes, no, so forth and so on. So that text message goes out to everyone here. And even on my smartphone, I can type back and give a message to everyone in the incident. And you just saw that reply from my smartphone. Once you touch the Mutualink network, guys, walkie-talkies have limited range. Imagine your smartphone operating off LTE. I've actually spoken from South America to Boston, smartphone to radio. So we conquer all of those hurdles. I hope that answers the chief's question.
No, I would think so. That's great. So who receives? I mean, so within the Mutualink network, who are receiving those messages? That text message you just sent, is that a broadcast message to the participants or the folks at a school or the stadium, or is that going to a closed team of individuals?
Those that receive that text message are those that are invited into the incident. Now, you can have multiple incidents on the screen. It's not unusual that you'd have one for your rank and file SWAT members. You'd have one for leadership. You might have one for fire and EMS. You can be part of all of them. But when you're in one, it's a segregated private work bucket. No one can hear you. No one knows what's going on unless you're invited in. And once you're in, as I said, everyone can text one another to stay off the airwaves. And it works real well, as you might imagine, from those of us with a career in law enforcement behind us. You know, when you have to type descriptions or addresses, how sweet it is. You just saw me type, you know, a phone number. It's in the record now, and it goes out to everyone. And I received it on my smartphone, and everyone in here gets the message. It worked really well. We reduced nonsensical communications, if you will, on Super Bowls and the Boston Marathon by almost 80%.
Oh, no kidding. And just last question, Jeff, and appreciate your time. So who manages this console? What role is that? Is that with law enforcement? Is that within the school? Who exactly manages the actual Mutualink system during an incident?
Well, first of all, once Mutualink makes the deployment, we then stay with you forevermore in a support role for any support issues, ongoing training issues. But again, we do a lot of listening. We speak to the client. Obviously, in a school situation, you know, while we'd like to think the school is in charge, they only are for a moment, right? So when they push the panic button, we want them through their SOPs to be then locking the door, shutting the lights off, taking cover. So obviously those that are invited in take the role of responsibility. And in that responsibility might be the sheriff, might be the police department. And then through our listening sessions, we listen to who, you know, which real-time crime center or which dispatch center is getting the invitation, as you saw demonstrated here. And then how is it passed down? You know, from this, if I then showing the audience here, if I wanted to now, and I'm in Rhode Island on the East Coast of the US, if I want to bring in the Arizona Fire Department into this incident, all I need to do manually to expand that is just click, drag, and drop right here, and it will ring in Clifton if I need that fire department. So again, expandable. We offer two modes of communications: one casual, one official. And again, in the 14 years I've been with Mutualink, and specifically in the school space in 2016, not even once has it been an issue.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate your time. If anyone that's participating has any additional questions for Jeff or like to connect, Jeff is located inside the ZeroNow community. You can reach out to him. We'll send a follow-up email with the recording of this with Jeff's contact information as well. So thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we have USA Software, and Christine Sherman is the business development manager at USA Software. Hey, welcome, Christine.
Hi, Ara. Good afternoon.
Florida, Orlando.
I am in Orlando right now attending a conference as we speak. The Association of Threat Assessment Professionals.
No,
Can
that's
you see my video?
not yet.
Okay.
And this is obviously a very important topic. I mean, tying all the pieces together. When, you know, part of ZeroNow, we always talk about preventing harm and getting to zero harm, and getting ahead of it when there is a threat is absolutely critical, and being able to connect those dots. Down the bottom should be share screen. There we go. No.
Did it go up?
It's not on.
Okay, hold on.
Let me try something here.
On my screen.
There we go. We're in business.
Got it now?
Excellent.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I'm with USA Software, Christine Sherman. I'm the business development manager here, and our program is called Behavioral Threat Assessment Case Management. And what we want to do is we want to identify, support, and help threat assessment teams manage these cases. We were actually approached by one of our campus police departments. We have another suite of products on the law enforcement side, and after Virginia Tech, and they asked us to build an application to help prevent something like that from happening on their campus. And we asked them for some information. We put together an application, but after MSD in Parkland, we went into the application and we completely retooled it, and that's what I'm going to show you here. So there we go. The question that everybody has is how do we prevent targeted mass violence, right? That's why we're all here, is to talk about prevention. And there's a lot of things you can come at it from different angles, and you can harden your facilities, and you can have active shooter training, and you know, is it a mental health issue? But the people in Virginia actually, and you're probably very familiar with this, they've done a lot of work, and they find that threat assessment has been very effective, and the data speaks for itself. The doctors out there, they've put some great models together to help guide you through the threat assessment process. The Secret Service in their NTAC model, which is we call it the granddaddy of them all, the 11 questions. And then there's Dr. Cornell's CSTAG model, which stands for Comprehensive Student Threat Assessment Guidelines. And he's actually a consultant with us out of the University of Virginia. And there's a Virginia model as well, aside from that, Salem Kaiser, but they're all paper-based. And it's great because there's a lot of really good information in those models. But what we've done is we've taken that and we've brought it into 2023. And this is just a kind of screenshot of what the application looks like when you log in. So you've got your latest assessments on the left, 4 windows into the system there, where you can do a person search, you can do a quick start, and just put in minimal information with what you know now, because we know that the threat assessment is not going to happen in 5 minutes, right? This is a process, and hopefully you have a team of people helping you go through the assessment. So and also on the right, that rotates every 30 seconds or so, and it's got your latest reports as to what types of threats that you're dealing with in your community, in your school district. We do have 3 versions of the software. We have K through 12, higher ed, and workplace and law enforcement. So we've tried to tool it to get the attention of all of these people, because they need to be doing threat assessment. It is preventative, and we can make a difference. So the proactive preventative approach is guiding through this information, triaging it, and doing your interventions, your safety plans, your follow-ups, that case management that's so important, so things don't fall through the cracks, and you can get individuals help that they need. Our application's browser-based. It's not, I hesitate to say web-based, because it's not out in the cloud. It's hosted on your server behind your firewalls through your intranet. So it is a web page, but you have to have access through your intranet. And if you do, you can access it from tablets, laptops, cell phones, and so forth. Because it's in a database, you've got over 100 built-in reports into the system. It gives you all those analytics, the types of threats that you're working, the data sharing, so we can do, you know, you're going to hear me say it a lot, is prevention, prevention, prevention. So here are some of the reports that you can do. This is, you know, just a few. Like I said, there's over 100, I think, built into the system that can be run on demand, or you can schedule them. Say every Monday morning at 7 a.m. you can get an email with a report that tells you this is what you're doing this week. This is what's due this week. This is what's past due. And again, you can have that, you can run it on demand, or you can have it scheduled. Threats by type, by level, by grade, by day, week, hour, that you can establish those thresholds on, and you can get an email when a certain individual reaches 3 or more within the last 6 months. You could be notified immediately. And you want to share this information with your team. Some people call it behavioral threat management teams, you've got crisis intervention teams, but all these people on the screen should be at the table. You want input from all areas, and that's what's going to make your team successful. It's that unity of effort to break down the silos and really, they didn't do that in Arapahoe High School. That lack of data sharing, things could have been prevented, because that's the goal, is to prevent someone from, harming themselves or harm to others. It's not, threat assessment is not meant to be a disciplinary process. And it's got to start before there's a gunman at this, not just the school door. It could be anywhere. It could be, the grocery store, the movie theater, the malls. I mean, we see it happening far too much anymore, and it's everywhere. In the heart of prevention, this is the report that I was talking about, is interventions, and you want to be able to see what's due, what's past due, so things don't fall through the cracks. Again, just an overview of what we do in our application. It's a complete case management database for your persons of interest. So you can do your safety plans, your suicide screening, your interventions, and your outcomes. And it's a step-by-step process. So it walks you through the assessment. This is out of Dr. Cornell's model, the CSTAG model, right out of his decision tree. If you're familiar with that, you evaluate the threat, you attempt to resolve it as transient. And then this is, if you're higher ed or if you're a law enforcement agency, you can go through these questions here. And if you notice the drop downs, a lot of these answers are yes or no. So you're not putting in criminal history, you're not putting in personal information. It's just yes or no. And in the digital world, we want to be able to upload pictures, videos. So if you do get any handwritten notes or anything like that, you can scan that in and make it part of the assessment. It's there, it's part of the record, and you just upload it as a PDF. You get automatic name alerts. So if the individual has previous assessments, when you start entering the name, it'll pop up and it'll tell you that this individual has previous assessments. Would you like to go take a look at that? We have automatic text messages and emails of actions and interventions. So when you assign somebody to follow up, they're going to get a text message and an email, because it's very important as we go through these follow-ups and these outcomes, because it's going to tell you where they are on their pathway to violence, and you can run a pathway to violence timeline. And identify the grievances. What is causing the trauma? Are they exposed to violence? And are they studying past shooters? I mean, there's all these things. Do they have, this is what they have in common, and they relate to some of these things, and we see it every time. So we've got a complete case management system. It's not paper-based. And again, over 100 reports, because you want to know what your team is doing, and you want to be able to share it. If you're a school, you want to maybe share it with the superintendent, with the school board. If you're law enforcement, you've got people in your community, because when they get out of school, they're in your community. So you want to know what your folks are working on. And that is what we're trying to do. I know ZeroNow is trying to get to zero, and we are trying to avoid these numbers here. Because it's just, in every case, there's always, there's leakage. There's things that could have been done ahead of time, and we see it all the time.
And that's the only way we're going to get to zero is to get ahead of this and taking a holistic approach, right? And you mentioned seeing there, yeah, there's typically leakage. I know that the Secret Service just released a report last week, 2 weeks ago, reviewing years, and that was the top recommendations. See something, say something, getting ahead of this, and intervening before something happens. And then what's nice is that we heard from Jeff, about the response, like how quickly can we respond if the prevention side of it fails. How quickly can we respond to mitigate the scope of harm, to keep people out of harm's way? And then I know Brian's going to talk about Intrado and some of the things that they're doing, but putting all these are all pieces of the puzzle to a holistic approach. So Christine, so how does information get into the actual platform? Is there like one centralized place that is feeding information in, or is it done on a more distributed level?
So it's entered by members of the team. They would start with, again, you could do a quick start and start with what you know, and then somebody else from the team is going to come in and they're going to start drilling down, the assessment and seeing, where it started, and depending on the nature of what happened, what needs to happen next, where do we go from here? Is there intervention and recommendations for different, maybe in anger management, but the follow-up, did they go? Is it helping? Do we need to check back in? I mean, those are the types of things that you could do within the system, but it's done by the team. The team would start the assessment and they would do the data entry, but it's in one centralized database.
And for a school, I mean, who typically takes the lead with getting this set up and managing the actual USA software platform?
So most cases, you've got at minimum of 3 people on a threat assessment team. In the school setting, you would have a school administrator, someone from mental health, and the SRO. And then you can, I know resources in some places are an issue. Some people have plenty of resources, some people don't, staffing, but those are the 3 minimum people that you should have on the team would be a school administrator, someone from mental health, and the SRO.
And you mentioned that the system is hosted locally on a server. Is there a reason why it's hosted locally versus being in the cloud? Are there security issues, or what? There must be a thought process behind that.
In our experience, they prefer it that way. IT in schools and law enforcement and stuff prefer to have it on their physical server, or they could have it on a virtual server, but it's their server that they control. And we don't host it. We don't manage the data. So it's their data, it's on their server, and they have it locked down to, who gets access and at what rights, permissions levels and stuff like that. So it's just in our experience that's what the IT people prefer.
Got it. And speaking of IT, so how is the system deployed? Is it a lengthy process to, you have a school says, we want to get ahead of this. We want to focus on prevention, get this thing deployed. What does that look like, a typical deployment?
Our process is very, very simple. I know sometimes getting it approved and getting paperwork and getting everybody to agree that this is what we're going to do sometimes is the biggest hurdle. But once it goes through and we're notified that they want to move forward, typically within 45 days, our process is very fast. And so it's one installation on one server, and then you give the user, we don't have to touch different machines and all of this. So it's pretty straightforward.
I mean, is there a lot of training involved with this to get the threat assessment team all on the same page? How does that work?
Yeah, so we provide with all of our installations, we provide 8 hours of training our pricing structure is based on an annual subscription, and the installation the first year comes with 8 hours of training. We suggest that that's broken up in like 2-hour blocks, because the human attention span it's hard to sit through an 8-hour webinar. Nobody really wants to do that, right? So we recommend 2-hour blocks and maybe spread it out. Use the software for a little while and then do some refresher training, but the 8 hours is theirs to do how they see fit. And we haven't had anybody ask for additional training.
Mm-hmm. And how going back to the inputs into the system, you mentioned like posts like on Instagram that can be uploaded. Is that done through someone on the threat assessment team, or how are they getting that information? Do you work with like tipping apps and platforms like that at a school district?
We can. When you start talking about interface, then that raises more questions with IT and what kind of information is being shared, what kind of information is being pulled. So we can do it. It's just an interface, but the way it's set up right now is that somebody from the team would enter that or scan it in and make it a PDF and just attach it to the record. Typically somebody's monitoring what comes in off social media. They've got people that are doing that already. But if you've got a threat assessment, an active threat assessment going, then you want to make it part of it, because then it's all there and it's all associated with the same incident.
Awesome. And one last question, and we're out of time. And Brian, you're up next. So are there alerts that go out if there's data that's entered in the system and there's clearly a red flag that there's a situation that an individual needs attention? Is there anything that can initiate that if there's a potential risk?
Yes, so we have the text and email capability is in there. When you assign someone to follow up, when you go in and you do an update, any action item, any outcome is followed up with a text and an email. That way the notification system goes across the board, and people, they know what they're responsible for, that they need reminded to follow up and everything. So yes, texting and email happens simultaneously.
Awesome. Yeah, because obviously things get lost in email, but if you could get the text out there and remind
Exactly.
Well, awesome. Thanks.
Everybody has their phone.
Everybody does. Exactly.
Everybody does.
Thank you for the work you're doing, and very important technology here, and appreciate your time. So thanks, Christine.
Thank you, Ara.
And Mr. Tulin, Brian.
Great, thank you. How's everyone doing?
I think you might be able to start your screen sharing. So Brian is the Vice President of Life and Safety and Intrado and ZeroNow member. And there we go. I think you should be able
There
to.
we go. All right, let's do it.
All right.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. So we're going to go over this a little quick and then see if we get some time to go into the actual platform. But for those of you who may not know Intrado, who we are, what we do, so Intrado does have a pretty lengthy background in the 911 industry. As you see on the top, we pretty much power the majority of the 911 infrastructure across North America. So that gives us the ability to leverage our own infrastructure to quicken our responses, get more information directly into dispatchers' hands without going through some of the other methods that you see today. And we'll kind of explain that as we go through. A lot of people may know us from the School Messenger communication platform for K-12 schools on how we do that parent and teacher guardian notifications. And then as you see below, a little over 50% of all PSAPs across the country are using our call processing equipment or our call handling solution. So a lot of deep grained intel into 911, and we've been doing this for well over 40 years now. What we focused on with our solution is really about all hazards incident management. You know, leveraging our expertise in the 911 emergency communication side, bringing in the all hazards incident management solution to be able to provide a holistic solution in schools, and providing that single pane of glass. So we want you to be able to see everything going on across any school at any time without having to dive deep in. Let the schools operate locally, let them operate in their school environment, you know, but from a single pane of glass view, administrator view, be able to see everything and anything that's going on without making multiple clicks. Of course, we're continuing to innovate and work with integration partners. You know, so as Ara mentioned, with the ability to detect weapons, we have that working right now in our system as well. But integrating into any SIS system, any HR database, and being able to press information across screens, telephones, digital display boards, and pull in information. Right. So as we go through and see, really our three components are about risk mitigation. So external risk starts with visitor management, being able to understand who's coming on campus, what potential risk they pose to the campus. And this really goes well beyond the typical sex offender registries. You know, we don't see that as a major problem going on campuses of people accessing for that specific reason. What we do see a lot of our custody issues where there's an arrangement in place. You know, some parent or guardian is not authorized to pick up a student on a certain day, you know, and they come in to pick up that child. We can flag that, provide that information to the SRO or to administrators, being able to customize your own unwanted registry. So in the event that you have suspended or expelled a student, or you have a student who is being watched for any particular reason, and their parent or guardian comes on to have a conversation about that, that could become an uncomfortable conversation that you want to flag and allow your administration or your SROs or both to know that they're on property. As well, from an overall perspective, understanding who's on campus at any given time. If you go into lockdown or you go into an evacuation mode, you want to know who is on your campus. Who do we have to account for? You know, where may they be at that time? So the visitor management provides that solution. Right. Our revolution is all about communicating to provide clear, concise information during an emergency. So being able to send information to TV monitors, to digital signage, to PA systems, to teacher desktop telephones, over your computer screens. You see the full screen takeovers and letting people know what's going on. Any other IP-based devices, but also interacting with access control. So now taking your panic buttons and making those locking mechanisms, right? We press a button, we can lock doors and unlock doors. And then finally, Safety Shield really is about the incident management itself, taking all the information we know about an event, categorizing it, putting it into one single system to allow you to better understand what's going on, what has been accomplished, what hasn't been, provide checklists, provide information, and provide more to law enforcement as they proceed onto a campus. Right. The big thing that we focus though on is customization. You know, not being locked into one single selection or one capability that someone offers. You know your campus is better than we do. You know your policies and procedures better than we do, and the system should be able to work based on what you need it to do, not based on what we tell you it has to do for you. So having that customization really helps people take our system and work within the environment that they've already created, all the policies, procedures. Every state is different. Everybody has their way of doing things. You see just a list of some of the more common things, creating those suspicious activity reports, and being able to manage it all from one spot. All right, on the bottom, you see some of the different things that are always in there. So the drill management, all the 50 states have that requirement. We have a full drill management section of our solution to allow you to run all of your drills, schedule them for the entire year, and be compliant with your requirements. Reunification, we have a lot of great things going on at reunification that we're going to show. attendance capabilities and accountability, both for staff and students, right? So we know where people are, we know how to make sure everybody's been accounted for and safe. And then digitizing SOPs, desktop shortcut buttons, because again, we don't know where people will be at any given time. We don't know what's easy for them or what works and what doesn't. Some schools still have the requirement that you cannot use a phone in schools. That goes for teachers as well. So sometimes that mobile app doesn't do them any good at that point. All right, so let's talk a little about mobile apps. We have a lot of myths out there about mobile apps. People won't download them. People think they're being tracked. This and that, and right. And sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. We see some, like I mentioned, some schools don't authorize their teachers to use their personal device during the day, so they have to be turned off. They don't have a school app or a school phone that they can use. So these become problems. Right. And at the end of the day, some teachers and staff don't want to download a work system onto their personal devices for a whole variety of reasons. But at the end of the day, the biggest myth that can be debunked and is over and over again is these apps do not track people. They do not know your location, when you're not on school property, and we do not do that ever. So Intrado came out this year or last year with a new wearable device, right? So it's the size, of a staff ID card. It allows them to put that right on the back of that case. This can be customized with their logo and their color for the sleeve, so we're not sticking them with our branding. But it operates off of a triple redundant capability. So Bluetooth beacons to allow for that pinpoint geolocation, exactly what room you're in, what hallway you might be in, what stairwell, what corridor of the building you're in. They also operate off of Wi-Fi. So again, a redundant capability in case the Bluetooth isn't active or somebody, sabotaged or something happened to that Bluetooth beacon. And then finally, also LTE. So all of these come with a SIM card. And it's not about one versus the other. It's a triple redundant active solution, right? So you don't have to worry about which one is doing what. They're all working in tandem so that when an emergency happens, when somebody presses the button, the information is relayed appropriately, everybody is notified correctly, and we are all understanding what's going on. We put a haptic device in these really because this is the fastest way that we can get people to perform an action. So you press a button, right? They're programmable, so you can determine how the button acts. Is it press once and hold for 3 seconds and it activates an active shooter, or is an active shooter pressed 2 times or 3 times? A medical might be 1 or 2 times. You get to make those decisions. You see there's some some LED lights on the front. The action for here is I press the button, it starts to vibrate everybody's device inside the school, so they immediately know something happened. They can tell by the color combination on the front, maybe all red is active shooter, maybe all blue is medical, right? But they know something happened and they can immediately start getting themselves and their students safe, right? Very important that we stop all capabilities of delay and get people safe as quickly as possible. What this does is it then transports the information directly to 911. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But you see on the right, I'm sure you've all looked through this, right? The daily health check capabilities, 2 programmable buttons. These can be used off-site for field trips, for bus drivers, right? All of these important capabilities. We saw a video the other day of a student on a bus injuring another student, right? This is stuff that we can't allow to continue. And again, program to lock doors, customized with your logo. And then the big one that people are probably looking at is only needs to be charged once a year. Right, so it does have a very long extended life battery. We'll go past a year, but we recommend that during the summer when school's not in session, you throw these on the charger. I did see some the other day say, but we want one that doesn't have to be charged at all. Those, that take that for what it's worth, right? You need a device that's going to work for a long time. This will stay with you for quite a long time. Reunification, accountability. This is really, again, the easiest way that we can find people to do this. So again, we're not looking at this being a situation where they're following somebody, but this is more, we need to account for students. We can update their status. Are they in transport? Did they get injured? Are they in the hospital? Did they get reunited already? But more importantly, who is responsible for that from the parent side or the guardian side? So we integrate this with your student information system. We pull over that relevant information, who is authorized to pick up the student. Are they a babysitter and they only have call rights, so they can get messages, but they can't pick up. Right. And then we force them to also identify themselves. So check the ID, check the photo to make sure it matches, or take a photo if you need to of the two people reunited. Add some additional information. We do have districts who want to put information there like the student has acknowledged that this is the person that they can be reunited with, and they accept that to go home with that person. And then we reunite them and we move on to the next. Also, chat functionality. We've heard a lot of districts who have problems with cell phone connectivity, so they may not be able to phone call people or other ways so they can chat, or they have radio systems that may not work at the time. We had a jurisdiction that just did a webinar with us the other day who said during their active shooter drill, their entire radio system went down, right? And they quickly moved over to the chat functionality and was able to pick it up instantaneously. All customizable. You can create whatever chat groups you want. You can share pictures, you can share video. You can do one-way chat. So if you have information you want to blast out to everybody without a response, you can do that. You have the two-way chat capability. We also, in our mobile app capabilities, have the ability to override the iOS mute settings, right? Android doesn't allow it. Google doesn't allow that yet, right? But the Android or the Apple side allows us to override their quiet settings or their mute. Okay, a little bit on communications. So we go through and we want to have a secure, actionable communication plan for a campus. So we have the ability to integrate our solution with all of these different types of devices and more. So from mobile radios to strobe lights to LED display boards, all the way down into your social media, your sirens, your blue lights that you may have on campus, desktop notifications and IP phones. You'll see we have a whole host of capabilities over here. We can even create a silent panic button directly on their IP phone so that they can press a button and someone's help quickly. We can do wall-mounted panic buttons as well. We can do different colors, fire, medical, integrate with strobe lights and place strobe lights inside buildings for you. And then your PA system and messaging. We can also do this from outside the building. So if you've evacuated the building and you still have people inside and you want to send a message over the PA system from outside on the mobile app, or on the desktop app, we can do that for you as well. Right. So a little view of that. And then finally, just want to talk about the most important piece of how the system works. Right. And this is called the connectivity into the PSAP. Where we have the ability to put information directly into the alley stream. So if you're thinking about and you're working with your PSAP partners and understanding how they want messaging delivered to them, right? So it's one thing for a mobile app to be activated and it physically dials 911, right? There's still challenges with that. With being on voice over internet, that call may show a dispatchable location of their billing address, right? Unless they update it to the school, which honestly, nobody's really going to do. So what we do is we take the information about the event, right? We create all this. We understand who activated the system. We place all this information through the alley stream or the advanced location information stream directly to the dispatcher's console, not a third-party application, not any web-based systems, directly into the system that they answer every single 911 call on every single day. But we put in more rich contextual information. What type of event, right? Where was it? The high school, the middle school, elementary school? What was the address, or what is the address? Who triggered that event and what is their callback number, right? What is the actual geolocation using their GPS, right? Who is the emergency point of contact at that school and what is their title and phone number? These are all things we can put in here. Additionally, we can also add in for Intrado-based PSAP customers. We have what's called an EDB or emergency data broker link. This pulls in video feeds. This pulls in floor maps. This pulls all that information in. If you're not, we do it through a tiny URL. We put all that information in. It opens it up into your environment. It gives you things like the exact location on the floor plan, right? Where they are at that time. Video feeds, all the information you need to be successful in your route. All right, so So that's about what we cover. I know we're running short on time, so I'll turn it back to you for any questions you guys might have.
Yeah, if you have any questions for Brian, please enter in the Q&A. I've got a few questions here. I mean, there is obviously a very comprehensive solution. So is the Intrado solution, is it both hardware and software based?
Yeah, so the Safety Shield piece is 100% software. It is a cloud-based solution. The Revolution piece is in on-prem, so it goes on your server, so it can be secured in your environment, connect to your access control, connect to your IP devices. We'll also tell you if an IP device is down, right? So if you do have an access control system that's not registering, right, or a single lock is not registering, we will actually notify you that device is not registered and may be unsecured door at this time.
So how much, I mean, typically how much IT involvement is required for a deployment? Obviously there are, multiple facets, different product lines and everything, but is it a heavy lift for IT?
No, it's actually very little lift, right? So once it gets installed, it will scan and pull up all your IP addresses, right? And it'll tell you what those are, and then you can coordinate those to be, if I press the active shooter button, then I want the following IP addresses to do the following actions, right? So it actually it's a very quick and easy to deploy solution, as is Safety Shield, right? We get a lot of people who, they already have this information. They have their floor plans, they have their documents, they have their checklist, they have all this information that they put into the system. And then that just allows them to upload it into our system, upload their personnel, put all that in there, and then, get the system working. Again, because it's customizable, they can create whatever buttons they want to create. They can create any type of trigger system. I can actually show you real quick here. They can, in the system itself, someone's doing a demo right now, but they can actually create whatever they want. So if they have a stop the bleed program, or you follow the I love you guys format, or you want weather information or medical, right? You can create as many of these as you want, right? These up here will go to 911 if they're in the pink. These down here will follow the ability to provide additional context, right? Add pictures, add video, and that type of stuff to be able to alert.
I mean, Brian, this is such a obviously very robust end-to-end solution. So if there's a school that really has very little security infrastructure today, and they are interested in an Intrado solution, where do they start? What would you recommend as the most fundamental entry point for school safety 101?
That's a good question. So typically we see people, the entry point is Safety Shield, the system you're seeing on here, because it comes with all the systems you need. It comes with the reunification, it comes with the attendance capability, it comes with the ability to integrate with your existing notification system. Right? It comes with all of those capabilities that are easy to start up and start using, right? And then they can grow with it. So at their pace, at their time, they can add feature functionalities, or they can say, all right, look, we're now ready to, work with our drill management, or we're now ready to work with reunification. So it's giving them the capability to have the system work with them. Plus they can preview it. So if they really like the reunification, they can turn around and say, hey, great, you know what, we can expand on this now. We can grow with this, we can build upon it without having to go back and pay more or add additional feature functionalities.
Got it. Awesome. Well, we are out of time. Brian, appreciate your time and sharing the overview of Intrado, and want to thank Christine and Jeff also for participating today and sharing your latest and greatest with our community of ZeroNow folks. Hey, Jeff and Christine, there you are. Awesome. So this will be available as a replay by next week, and it'll also be you could also rewatch these clips inside the ZeroNow community under Intrado USA Software Mutualink's partner section in the ZeroNow community. I want to remind folks that our next webinar is Tuesday, February 21st at 2 p.m. Eastern, and their topic is safety drills and exercises for schools. This will be a roundtable discussion with some experts talking about things that you can do with your school to start preparing, or to be even more optimized preparing for the unexpected. And so that'll be the 21st at 2 p.m. Just want to remind folks once again, if you're interested in joining ZeroNow, just go to zeronow.org click join. There's no cost for the first year. If you're an individual, if you're interested in being a partner, just contact us. We'll get you some more information on that. And once again, thank you, Christine, Jeff, and Brian. And we'll talk to you all soon, and be safe. Thanks, guys.